Well, we're rolling.
Well, we have a meaty mailbag today. It's a
Marshawn
Monday.
Lynch.
Marshawn Lynch. There it is. That's the name.
It,
Okay.
sorry.
All right. We're
Yeah.
gonna count this in again instead of trying to explain this.
You don't want to leave that in? I think we should leave it in. Let's leave it in. I'm not counting this in. Let's go.
You're not counting us in. Good
No.
morning and welcome to the mailbag, everybody. This is a Monday morning mailbag on a Tuesday afternoon. I'm Scott Belford, joined by the best co-host in the biz, Adam Mack. He does not look backwards, he looks forward. Uh, that name you heard him just scream out there.
Proves definitively I don't have Alzheimer's.
Yes. So we were talking in the preamble, and that is what that is from. Of course, if you are a member of Patreon, you are privy to whatever conversation we were having there that made Adam scream out Marcel Lynch, right?
Marshawn. Marshawn.
Marshawn, yes. We were talking football
Look,
with somebody
it
who
was, I
doesn't
mean,
know football. So,
considering it's a football reference, it was a pretty baseball heavy preamble today, to be
yes, it was.
honest.
Yes, it was.
I I a few times thought, I wish we were recording for YouTube right now. This is good stuff.
So you can always get a hold of us by reaching out on Twitter at Walk Off Podcast. We're on Blue Sky now at The Walk Off Podcast. Reach out on Instagram, The Walk Off Podcast. If you are a member of Patreon, you get, as we call it, the Patreon bump, which means you automatically get your questions or comments into the mailbag. We have a bulky one today. We're going to get to as many as we possibly can. I know I dove into YouTube and grabbed some comments off there. You are obviously welcome to put your thoughts, questions, comments down on YouTube. And as for everyone listening on audio, again, I really do think the best way to reach out is just DM us. Again, Twitter, Blue Sky, Instagram, however you want to do so. All right, on that, let's dive in here. And we're going to start with this one. And this question made me laugh because we spent so much time trying to figure this out on Friday. And I do think we sort of kind of have some definitive answers here. I wish we were more confident about the way the CBT deferrals and signing bonuses work, but we're going to get through it here. So, this is the question. It's from Beecher70. And he goes, okay, guys, call me a moron. Lord knows my wife does it at least once daily. I just don't understand this whole deferred revenue situation with the Dodgers. I know it's been done before, Bobby Bonilla being notorious, but I don't get how they can defer hundreds of millions of dollars like this when they have to pay it. Won't that take a toll on the team? Question mark. Eventually these guys are getting paid huge bucks. Is it like putting a couch on layaway or something? Like, I just don't understand why you would want that huge liability on the books. What is the advantage today that makes it so worthwhile down the road, and isn't the down the road a huge hit? So, quite a bit there.
Mhm.
Um, I will say, so they do need to pay the piper. You are knocking these deferrals down the road, and just to take Shohei Ohtani's contract, they're paying him $2 million a year for the first 10 years, and then they're paying him $68 million a year for the last 20. Now, we were talking about AAV on Friday, and we thought that the way AAV was calculated with deferrals is the entire length of the contract, because the numbers were so weird when you're doing it, but that's not the case. So the deferrals work as following. You would take the 10-year term that the actual contract is for. So technically, he got 10 years, $700 million, even though there's another 10 years of deferrals tacked on at the end,
Mhm.
which breaks down to 70 million a year. Now his AAV is actually 46.5 million, and that is because there is inflation math involved here. So I don't know the inflation math. And if that is something that you must know, you got to listen to your economist podcast, because turning to us is not the way to do it. But just know that technically, with whatever the equation is to get the AAV after inflation, Shohei sits at 46 million a year. Now, the 68 million that they are paying, so at
Time out.
at the end of the contract.
Slight
Yeah.
question here.
Yeah.
So you're saying that if Shohei Ohtani had have signed a 10-year, $700 million contract with no deferrals,
Mm-hmm.
his AAV would still only be 46 million a year?
No, not at all. It would be 70 million.
So the deferrals do affect it?
Yes, because of inflation. So
Okay.
because you're paying those, because you're paying that 68 million a year for the next 10 years after he's off the books, the money is actually worth less at that point than it is right now.
So the size of the deferral matters. So if he had have done it in reverse, if it was 68 million a year for the first 10 and then the last 10 were two, his
To
AAV would be much higher
much
than
higher.
46?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Um, Signing bonuses. So I know
It makes me sad that they're estimating 10 years from now, $70 million is only worth $46 million.
yeah, right? No, for sure. I mean, there's more to it than that, because
I know,
obviously,
but
but
yeah.
so the questions in here, when they have to pay it, won't that take a toll on the team? So the answer is yes. So even though AAV for Otani's deal is 46 million a year, and his money is only on the books for the 10 years. And when I say the books, I mean the CBT. So it's only counting against the CBT, the collective bargaining tax, until his contract is up and he is removed from the 40-man roster, which is why Bobby Bonilla does not count towards the CBT anymore, even though he's making that 1 point.
Chris Davis with the Orioles.
Exactly. So technically, because it's been adjusted for inflation, the money has been counted for, right? 46 million a year for the first 10 years. Now, the 68 million dollars that they're going to be paying every year for 10 years after that does not count towards the CBT, but still needs to be paid. So technically, it is still a hit to the organization, however you want to view that. So does this eventually catch up to a team? My guess is yes, it does. And that even though that the money they're spending isn't technically going to need to be on the CBT, it's still going to be in the books of the Los Angeles Dodgers and is still going to be a cost. How that affects them, I actually don't know.
I guess in theory, whatever their revenue is right now annually, let's just call it $1 billion annually.
Mm-hmm.
In theory, 10 years from now, when they're paying him 40 or I guess $68 million not to play, in theory, the revenue in year 11 is like 1.1 billion, right? Just with the general growth of the business,
Yes.
there's enough growth to cover that. One thing I know with these deals, from listening to David Sampson, actually, friend of the show, is that there is a requirement in the CBA. A lot of CBs in this discussion here, but in the CBA, it is required for a team to do a deferral. They need to have cash in hand on the day the contract is signed. Like they have to have an account with the funds in it. So they
Mm-hmm.
can't do a speculative, oh, sure, we'll give you $680 million down the road.
Right.
They have to be able to, like, they have to have a set account with
Mhm.
$680 million liquid cash in it when they sign the deal. But on day two, they can they can literally empty the account. So they only have to have all that deferred money, the entirety of it, 100% of it. They need to have available when the contract is signed. They can then move it around and reuse it and reallocate it. So again, this is like one of the problems of the rich getting richer,
Mhm.
right? And this is where I want to take this conversation about the problem with the furls is that there's a looming lockout coming that I'm worried about, right? Is
Mhm.
that teams like the Dodgers can afford to make a move like this. The Rays couldn't. The A's
Mhm.
couldn't, right? Like even if they wanted to, most owners don't just have the ability to rearrange their portfolio for a day and pull $680 million and just put it in cash in a bank account, even for a day. And
Mhm.
these are billionaires, but you can't do that. So that is like a move that even if you wanted to spend the money, it's literally impossible for a vast majority of baseball owners to do that kind of a deal, even if they wanted to. Even if Otani was willing to go to the race, they
So
still
to
can't.
answer the last part of this question, which is what is the advantage today that makes it so worthwhile down the road, and isn't the down the road a huge hit? And the answer is just money. The total of the money right now is going to be worth less down the road. So you're literally giving yourself a discount by kicking it down the road is basically how it works. And yes, you still need to pay the piper. This is still going to be on the books, quote end quote, but it's not going to count towards the CBT because it's already been counted after the inflation math with the AAV. Clear
There,
as mud.
there, there is, yes, to that point, there is with any team, like look at the Blue Jays and George Springer, right? Like, when you sign a guy, we're going to give him 6 years. The first three are going to be good. The last three are going to be bad, right? This is just like that, but to the extreme, right? The
Mhm.
first 10 years are going to be awesome. The last 10 years are going to have no upside. It's going to do nothing but suck. And this is kind of like I don't know, maybe this approach happens in other aspects of the world, but I really think of it in like gaming. So I'm going to call it the gamification of like min-maxing is what they refer to it in like video games and Dungeons and Dragons and stuff. And it's the idea of like when you build a character, you can balance their stats, right? I'll avoid Dungeons and Dragons and I'll try and stick with a baseball analogy, right? But you're playing the MLB The Show 2025 edition, and you're making your Scott Belford character, right? And you only have so many attribute points to assign the skills, right? Speed and power and defense and whatever, fielding, all this. You can make a guy that's like all 70s, but he's going to be a triple A guy, right? Or you can make a guy who has like five for speed and instead give all those points to power hitting and contact. And just like, I don't care how slow he's going to run the bases, he's only going to run them after a home run. And
Right.
that guy's going to hit 47 home runs and make, $50 million, right? So just the idea of, and that's kind of like where baseball's gone, right? Like look at, a guy like Joey Gallo or whatever, right? It's like, we're just going to sell out for the home run.
Hmm.
We're just gonna min max, and it's kind of like that approach has been taken to the contract negotiation.
Yeah.
Uh, it's kind of being exploited in that direction of like, yeah, rather than us toiling in mediocrity and like, it doesn't really apply to baseball, but I could think of it like with hockey as a Montreal Canadiens fan, despite wearing an Oilers hat. It's where I live, not my choice. But the Canadians are like, I mean, they're fucking dead last this year. But for most of my life, it's felt like the Canadians have been between seventh and 10th in the East. Like we're either going to barely sneak into the playoffs or we're going to just miss it, right? But we're never bad enough to get Connor Bedard. We're never bad enough to get Sidney Crosby. Like, so there's never that like rebuild and just when you just suck, but
Yeah.
like you're just hoping we can just get in and maybe Carey Price will carry us to a Stanley Cup. You know, it's like you can't. I don't know. I don't like that idea for a baseball approach. I really do. As much as I hate what the Dodgers are doing, it's only because I'm jealous. I wish the Blue
Yeah.
Jays were able to do it. Like,
Yeah.
I wish we were doing that. I think it is the best possible approach of like, let's be fucking elite. Let's fucking be awesome for a decade. And then we could be fucking dead last for a decade. That's fine too. Because
Yeah.
we're gonna be still sweeping up confetti from our other World Series rings.
Hmm.
The fans will still be okay with it. And then guess what? After that 10 years of sucking, we'll be positioned to run it back again and go 10
Especially,
years of being awesome again.
and who knows, man, like their player development's so good, they might not even suck.
They might
And
not. Yeah,
it's
truly.
frustrating. So we'll
Yeah.
finish this up with just talking signing bonuses really quickly here. So technically signing bonuses do not count towards the AAV, but asterisks here, okay? It still must be counted at some point. So let's use the Blake Snell example here. And this is so Blake Snell's AAV is 34 million, right around there. Maybe it's
Okay.
36. 36.4 actually, I think is what it is.
Okay.
Now, 60 million of Blake Snell's money has been deferred. So there's inflation math in this as well. Now, the $52 million signing bonus means that his AAV is actually calculated from 132 million divided by 5, which breaks down to 26.4 after inflation math. The 52 is being divided 5 times. So it's technically being counted like it's $182 million pretty much. But they could just pay that 52 million all up front on this year, which then would count just towards, because again, it has to be counted, but how you distribute it is up to you as an organization. So if the Dodgers chose to, they could put that $52 million all on 2025. And then from that point on, his AAV for the next 4 years, despite that big 78 million hit or whatever, would then be 26 million a year. That's not the way they did it. They distributed it throughout the 5 years. But technically, signing bonus does not count AAV unless it's the first year or wherever it is, right? Again, the money has to be counted. AAV is calculated by the total salary divided by the term, and the CBT gets calculated at the end of the season. So the bonuses do count, which means that all the money needs to be counted. So when you see bonuses for a gold glove, bonuses for silver slugger,
Mhm.
it's calculated at the end of the year. If
So,
we miss something, let us know.
so this is exploitable. A month ago, I said we could offer Juan Soto a deal where we gave him a bunch of money, and then $0 every 3 years to reset our tax number. And I was roasted
Yes.
because it's based on AAV. But I think this signing bonus, not saying you could give him 600 million as a signing bonus. I mean, you could.
Yeah.
Is it possible? I don't know. But you could, and you
Now,
could exploit it this way.
so
If you're allowed to distribute that signing bonus hit however you like, could you not?
you could. Now, here's the reason why we don't see organizations doing this a bunch, right? Like front loading contracts. And that's
Mhm,
because that money is worth its absolute most right there, right? So, again, with
mhm.
the inflation shit. So, yes, it made more sense for the Dodgers to not pay 52 million right up front, right? To like put 10 mil a year.
So, okay, yes, I understand. If the final deal for Juan Soto ends up being 700 million over 15 years or whatever, right?
Mhm.
if you give him 46 million a year every year for 15 years, it costs less for the owner than if you were to just give him $700 million today,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because of inflation, it's not as expensive at the end, right? Plus, in the every year that you don't spend the money or give it to someone, you can put it to work for yourself and with investments and whatever. I get all that. What if whatever the value is, like the difference, right? You go, okay, the 500 million today would be worth 700 million over 14 years, right? What if you gave Juan Soto $500 million contract, right? Everyone's going up with the numbers. What if you went down with the numbers, but you say you get it today?
Yeah. You
It's a
invest it, Juan. You do
yeah,
you.
it's a 15-year contract, $500 million. It's all signing bonus. You get it all today.
Yeah.
And now it's up to him. He's like, oh shit, like over the course, I can invest, I can buy the Oakland A's, I can, do whatever I want. And then we distribute that cap hit where every 3, 6, 9, 12 years, it's a
Yeah.
zero on our CBT. Now Adam's vindicated. Now Adam's
Man,
vindicated.
this deferral thing is so interesting, and I'm with you with your comment on the CBT negotiation that's coming up in 2026. I do wonder how some of these poor owners or like how are the majority of owners going to approach this? Are they going to just like keep their hands out of the pie? Like, are they just going to be like, you know what? These have been the rules. Yes, they figured out a way to exploit them a little bit, but I'm fine with it? Or is this going to be a really big sticking point? I don't know.
I'm sure it's going to all come down to revenue sharing.
Yeah.
If it benefits the poor teams via revenue sharing, they'll be fine with it. But if they view it as, again, I haven't looked at it from this lens, but if what the Dodgers is doing with Shohei's contract also means they end up revenue sharing less, then it'll be a big sticking point.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what I think.
All right, moving along. This is from Jimmy Hogg, messaged us on Twitter, again at Walk Off Podcast. He goes, boys, love the show. I'm still convinced that this front office will never learn from their mistakes. Just running Don Mattingly and Big John right back out there. No changes. By the time there's new faces, it'll be too late, and Bo and Vlad will be gone. Um, yeah, so I do understand that sentiment, and I definitely share it a little bit here. I will say they have made more changes amongst the coaches than maybe people are giving them credit for. Yes, John Schneider's still the manager. Yes, Don Mattingly has been reshuffled in this offensive coordinator position. I'm not sure exactly his title this year, but they have added in the last few months a brand new hitting coach in David Popkins out of Minnesota. He actually was the hitting coach with the Twins when they led the majors in home runs in 2023. We watched Mark Tremuta come in as the new director of amateur scouting as we watched Shane Farrell leave. We watched Matt Haig, former hitting instructor with the Blue Jays, go to the Pirates. We just heard that the adjustments continue to Blue Jays coaching staff on the hitting side as they've hired Dodgers hitting coordinator Lou Ianetti as an assistant. The 32-year-old has been with the Dodgers in various roles since 2018. I mean, hiring a Dodgers hitting coach is always a two thumbs up scenario from this guy. So yes, they have made some moves. I also, by the way, I totally 100% get what Jimmy is saying here, that it does feel like they are just,
Listen, guys, relax. We've got Lou Ianetti now. Like
yeah,
we're turning the ship around. Fucking
yes,
calm down.
yes. Mark Tremuta is going to save us all.
Yeah. I mean, the Vladdy and Bo of it all is that like I think I talked myself into this yesterday on MLB Mondays there for the Patreon, but if we retain Vladdy, and if Bo leaves, and if we enter a rebuild, we can rebuild in 3 years. Not with this, not with this management team. I'm not
No.
saying Ross is the guy to do it, or Shapiro for that matter. But as far as are we going to waste Vladdy? I mean, he's entering his prime now, right? There's still going to be good years once the rebuild is finished. I guess is my optimistic toxic positivity of it all.
Mm-hmm.
Is that he's going to be 26 this season. Let's say we put all our chips on the table, we go all in and we try and we however the playoffs go is irrelevant, and then the rebuild starts 12 months from now. He's going to be 27. Maybe we waste his 27 and his 28-year-old seasons as we're rebuilding. 27, 28, 29, 30.
So in this scenario,
31.
he's extended.
He's extended. He's staying with the Jays long term. And I just think on the scale of his career, lots of guys have their career best seasons between 30 and 32.
Yep.
So there is still a very good chance if we do have to do a rebuild that we will still, even though, yeah, we're not going to have all of Vladdy's best years fully benefiting from a great team around him. But it's not going to be like we're going to miss his prime, and by the time the rebuild's done, he's going to be washed.
Yeah.
Right? It's not that bleak. It is going to be like, okay, we're at the like tail end of Vladdy's prime, or like, we're on the sun is setting, so to speak, but he's still going to have good years, really good years between ages like 30 and 33, 34. Like he's not going to be bad until probably like 34, 35 and beyond. Like, but even then he might have some good moments or whatever. But yeah, like I could see us rebuilding. It'll suck to waste his age 27, 28 season. But I don't know. Maybe we go heavy in free agency and we do bring in a big guy or two. And maybe it's not as long of a rebuild as it otherwise feels like it would be. Like
It feels bleak, but I'm with you. Like there's a lot that can go on this offseason still that still sets this team up to not be the 2000s iteration of the Blue Jays. That's for sure.
like one of the things that we've given Ross Atkins and Shapiro credit for is that the way they spent in free agency so far does line up with still being able to pay Vlad and Bo both. Right? Is that a lot of the money comes off the books at the end of this season. Bassett done after this year. Gossman done after next year. Springer done after next year. There's going to be wiggle room in free agency next off season where it's like, okay, we won't have Bo Bichette potentially, but we'll also have $30 million that we were planning on giving to Bo Bichette to give to whoever else. Like there'll be money to spend, I guess, is if we're going to keep the $230 to $250 million payroll range, rebuild doesn't have to be that bleak. Actually, I'm really talking myself into this that like if Bo's gone and we're not up until this year, I felt like Bo and Vlad were going to get twin contracts of like 30 million a year ish, give or take 2 to 5 million in either direction for either guy. If Bo's gone, that just means we have to go get a different superstar.
Yeah.
Like it's not like we're going to pay Vlad and be like, okay, but now we're only going to be $160 million payroll team. Like, no, we're still going to just,
hopefully.
okay, Bassett's gone. We're going to go get I don't know. I don't think it's going to be that bad. It'll
I
suck
like
watching
this.
Bo Bichette win an MVP for the Dodgers, but beyond that, I mean, like,
There's that toxic positivity we've been lacking.
right? Come
All right.
on.
So this is from Michelle. She DM'd us. She goes, "Hey guys, so I just saw Kevin Pillar is not retiring after all and planning on playing in 2025. Do you guys think that with Dalton Varsho being injured the first month of the season, that a Jays reunion with Pillar makes sense?" So I looked up what he got paid last year. So the Angels guaranteed him $1 million and that was his salary. You go back to what he was getting paid in 2022 and 2023. I think he got a 2-year deal worth $7 million, something like that. So my guess is Pilar to come back to the Jays is going to cost right around that $1 million it cost him the Angels last year. Maybe a little bit more because he was an all-star and had a bit of a resurgence there. But he is 35 years old. And Adam, I'll let you kind of take the reins here, but I will say that for me, I mean, just give Nathan Lucas a fucking chance already. Like I can't see Lucas doing worse than what Pilar would be. And I mean, he's already in the system. You don't have to spend that extra $1 million. It would be a nice story, but I mean, maybe we bring Pilar back year one of the rebuild next year, right? Like I'm all good for warm fuzzies then, but maybe let's try and put the best team on the field we can right now while there's still lip service of us trying to compete. I don't know. Where are you at, Adam?
Yeah, I'm with you. Like, I mean, $1 million for Kevin Pillar, like, it sounds good. And, we all remember his time in Toronto, right? Was
It would be a nice
a
story.
human highlight reel.
Yeah.
I could see why he decided to not retire after all, after how his foray into broadcasting went. I know some people were a fan of it. I thought, oof, that's not quite it, buddy. Um, he's gonna be 36 this season.
Yeah.
He'll be
35 right now.
36 on January 4th. His last 3 seasons, this is with the Mets, the Dodgers, the Braves, the White Sox, and the Angels.
Immaculate
227
grid
bat,
superstar Kevin Pillar.
the 227 batting average, 672 OPS, 32 home runs in 4 seasons with
I
an
mean,
OPS plus of 83. You're going to get below average offense, which is only going to get worse. And I don't trust a 36-year-old to be the human highlight reel that he was as a 26-year-old.
no, I get
So,
what Michelle is saying here with Varsho on the IL to start the season, and maybe there's a guy with some experience in center field who has been there and done that. But again, I just feel like in house they already have what they need for a fourth outfielder.
yeah, no, I agree with you. I think, again, I'm not advocating for us to go into April without having added more players, but like whatever the situation has been, whoever we've added, whether we've picked up Teoscar Hernandez again or whatever, I'm with you. Like, give Nathan Lucas a shot for a month. Like, I I think that he's going to be better than Pilar at 36 years old.
I
Whoever we stick out there, fucking put Lopperfido out there. Fuck, put George Springer out there. Let's run him into the ground, and then we can sit him for the last 5 months of the season.
I
Probably the best case
genuinely
scenario.
I genuinely feel the same as that. Grounds crew, where are you at? Would you like to see a reunion with Kevin Pillar maybe as the fourth outfielder in
I'm not
2025
even
with the Blue Jays?
anti-Pilar. I think we should
No.
fucking hire him as a fucking outfield coach.
Yeah.
You know, give him a
Kevin
million bucks to
Kiermaier.
just
Kevin
right.
Kiermaier showing up to spring training after that job. So I don't know. Pilar would have to retire and go for it himself too.
Pilar and Kiermaier, man, just the two Kevins training
Yeah,
our
the two
outfielders.
Kevins. All right. Last one from Twitter. This is from Jason. He goes, "Hey guys, hoping to get into mailbag. I just saw a really weird rule idea. I'm curious your thoughts on this proposed golden bat rule. Would you guys be cool with this rule change?" So, I looked it up, and for those of you wondering what the golden bat rule is, and this is every single year, Rob Manfred and the MLB brass toss around rule change ideas they think would improve the game, make it more interesting, speed it up, whatever it may be. So this would be to increase offense. MLB Commissioner Rob Manfred considering golden at bat rule, where teams are given one time a game to send any player from their team to the plate. Bottom of the ninth, Jays down by one, runners on second. Dalton Varsho coming to the plate.
Not so fast.
Wait, hold up. Vladdy, get a helmet. What do you think of this? I feel like such an old man, dude. I hate this so
I
much.
know. I know. Uh, I
I
hate the name of it, and that's it.
That's
I
funny.
love it. I love it so much. I just hate the golden bat as a, I don't know.
I told my wife this idea, and I've
Yeah,
never seen her be more of a 65-year-old man in my life.
hated it,
She
eh?
was just like, "What the hell? That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. What, we're just gonna start making it into what did she call it? A clown show? Is that what we're doing with baseball?" I was like, "Whoa, wow. I didn't feel this strongly about it. I don't like the idea of the rule change, but I will say this though, I didn't like any of the rule changes, and now I actually love the majority of them." I know that you and I on MLB Mondays yesterday kind of went through the length of games, and
Mhm.
that in 2024, only 12% of games lasted more than 3 hours. Going back just 3 years to 2021, 67% of games went
Yeah.
over 3 hours. So sometimes a rule change, despite the old man in me wanting to fight against it, does wind up being fun and good for the game. But I don't like this one.
I was watching David Sampson this morning, and he's describing when they won the World Series with the Marlins in 2003. They're playing the Yankees. Josh Beckett on the mound to close the game. And Samson describes himself as, he's sitting there, he's leaning forward watching the game, and he looks across to the Yankees dugout, and there's Derek Jeter with his helmet off, leaning on the fence of the dugout, watching. And just the idea that the best player on the Yankees and the president of the Marlins are both contributing to this moment as much. Like, there is a but there are just moments that feel like in the eighth inning, okay, we just got to get through Judge, Stanton, Soto. And if we can get past them right now, the ninth inning is a foregone conclusion, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
the other guys aren't getting to us, but these three might. So it's just like a little bit anticlimactic to be like, okay, maybe what's that ginger in left field there for the Yankees? What kind of think of his name? Went into the left field wall against the Dodgers, blowing bubble gum as a triple was hit past him. What's the Yankees left fielder?
Oh,
Used to play. Used to
Verdugo.
play.
How did I
Yes.
not?
Thank
Just
you. Thank you.
unreal. One of my least likable, like one of the
Right.
least likable players
Right.
in baseball.
Top 10 punchable faces in baseball right now. You're going into the ninth going, all right, fucking maybe Verdugo has a miracle in him.
Yeah.
Like, no, put Judge back at the plate. Well, not Judge because he's not clutch, but put Juan Soto back up there or Stanton back up there. Like, I I fucking love this, but I'm also the guy that says like 6 foot outfield walls in every stadium.
Yeah.
Like, why are we ever having uh, a climb the wall double robbing catch as opposed to a climb the wall home run robbing catch? Like, it's just so much better to see a guy climb a wall, rob a home run.
Yeah.
So much more epic than if it's a 15-foot fence and if he doesn't get it, it's just a stand-up double. Like,
Yeah.
so I love the moments of it all. And I think if this was
There could
something
be
where you're
some
like,
really funny things to happen.
man,
Like think
you'd
about,
see, yeah, back-to-back home runs from the same guy. Like
I mean,
Vladdy
yeah.
goes up and hits a home run to tie the game, rounds the bases, and then goes right back to the batter's box and hits
Yeah.
another one.
Or
Like,
you just, you're in extra innings. Manfred's man's at second. Juan Soto's at the plate. He strikes out and you're breathing easy. You're like, "Oh, thank God. It's Aaron Judge. Thank
yeah,
you. The least clutch player in baseball is now at the plate in a clutch moment." And then they're like, "Nope. Juan
yeah.
Soto goes again."
You got to throw 6 strikes to Juan Soto to end the inning.
Yeah.
Like, that's fucking
No, there'd be
sick,
fun in it. There'd be fun in
right?
it. I just hate the idea of it. I just, you start changing the game and I just don't like it. But I also, like I've already said, right? I was against all the rule changes and now I like them, almost all of them. So
How about this? Instead of the golden batter, the Manfred batter,
now I'm
the
on
ghost
board.
batter.
The ghost batter. Thank you. All right, let's move along here. We do
All
have a
right.
ton to get to, so we got to get moving here. Patreon. Patreon bump happens the second you give us $4 a month to help support the channel. That means you automatically get your questions and comments in. Mark Drabert commented on MLB Mondays about what you were talking about with your collection idea of like
Mm,
oddities in
yep,
sports, like the Bill Ripken, right?
yep,
Fuckface on the bat, right?
yep.
So he goes, it would be really cool to have a collection of baseball cards for any current, former big leaguers you interviewed on the podcast. So
Would
like
be
a
cool.
a, a walk-off specific collection we could start.
Would be very cool.
Yeah.
Speaking of my collection here, the four that I listed, Mark Jackson of the Knicks with the Menendez brothers sitting courtside,
Yes.
currently going for $49 on eBay. OJ Simpson rookie card, currently going for $140 on eBay. There was a Bill Ripken fuckface card, $104 on eBay. Charizard first edition. This is a PSA graded 1. It is scratch to shit. $2,950 on eBay.
Wow.
Uh, I couldn't find a 10 graded available for sale, but I did find a level 9 graded first edition Charizard. 126,000 is what it's going for
Jesus.
right now. So,
Pokemon.
Pokemon.
Johnny Eaton pipes up. And this is some positivity for all of you who are losing your mind every time we start going down that Vlad and Bo rabbit hole of them just being gone at the end of the year. So he goes, it's still a year from the end of Bo and Vlad's contracts with the Jays. There's plenty of time. We can't assume they are walking for nothing. At the very least, they can be traded at the deadline if the season isn't going well. If it is going well, there could still be an extension signed. One thing is for sure, it's going to be complicated. Yeah. Um, this next one really goes along with this sort of, so we'll read it before we discuss.
Okay.
Wyatt G goes, something Scott said a while back that really stuck with me. I hate how much control Shapiro and Atkins have on my happiness. Yes. Quoted right here out of this mouth. There's a real possibility that Bo and Vlad both walk in free agency. Atkins and Shapiro get fired and leave this organization in nothing but a burned, charred wasteland of once promising paradise. And thinking about that scenario just twists my stomach. I know Time is supposed to heal all wounds, but I guarantee if you ask any old school Oilers fan if they are over Gretzky getting traded, to this day, their answer will still be no. So, two very different views on this Bo and Vlad thing, and both with merit. I mean, we talk about this all the time, Adam, right? The hardest part is the not knowing. It's the big question marks. Where the fuck is this organization going? We don't know.
Yeah, it's also like the best part though, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
it's the answers that suck. Like it's the reason the first four seasons of Game of Thrones are better than the last four seasons of Game of Thrones, right? Like it's all pick your TV show, and I'd argue it probably applies to almost every TV show, is the mystery, the asking of questions is way more exciting than the answering of questions. Like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, what's this threat in the north? Oh, what's going on with this, exiled king? Oh, how's this going to resolve itself? And then once stuff starts getting resolved, it's like, oh, I kind of wish it had gone differently, or whatever. And that's where kind of like back to like Bo and Vlad's career trajectory so far. Remember, like when they debuted as 20-year-olds, and it was like, oh, the sky's the limit. These
Mm-hmm.
could be first ballot Hall of Famers. Like these. Imagine the potential of, how many rings are we gonna get, right? Like, and then you start getting questions answered, and you get Fat Bo Bichette for a season, and that's a weird story arc, I don't know. It was funny, and It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia when
Yeah.
Mac was fat for a season.
Yeah.
Fat Bo, not as funny.
Not as
Not,
funny. Not as
not as funny.
enjoyable. Yeah, give me Fat
So,
Mac.
Fat Mac, buddy. Yeah, rum ham.
A couple more comments around this. Philip goes, again, Patreon here. So Philip goes, I'm tired of the Blue Jays acting like it's early 2000s with the money and contracts they offer. I'm surprised not more is being made out of Rogers not dealing with this Guerrero situation and locking him up long term. Now they waited too long and Guerrero is going to cost a fortune. What's he going to cost now? 500 million over 12? So I totally understand Philip's frustration
Mhm.
there. I will
Mhm.
say, um, not an not 100% an accurate comparison there with the 2000s Jays because despite Mark Shapiro and Ross Atkins not delivering any playoff wins for us, they have managed to get this ownership group to spend a lot of money, which honestly just makes this whole scenario more frustrating in in my books, right? So if you look back on what the Blue Jays salary, what they were topping out at for their player salaries in the 2000s, I guarantee it is a sliver. Like maybe 40%, 50%, maybe not even 50% of what the Blue Jays payroll is at right now, which again, this is not a I'm not touting how great Atkins and Shapiro is with this. In fact, quite the opposite.
Mhm.
But it's not really the money and the contracts that are the problem. It's really the player development that just has not managed to happen. And I will say he is correct with Guerrero is that maybe they did wait too long. And you know what? 12 years, $500 million. I don't even see that as that crazy once we see what Juan Soto gets. Who knows if Vladdy does not
Yeah.
sign a extension and has a comparable year to last year, he probably has bumped himself into the 12-year, $500 million range on the open
Yeah.
market with the New York Mets needing a first baseman. Who knows?
I mean, okay, that's the thing. It's like there's two different like questions at play here. Like the one is like what is he worth? The other is what is he going to get, right? Because those are
Mhm.
two wildly different questions, wildly different answers, right? Probably worth in the 300 range. What's he going to get? Yeah, like when you talk about like, well, the Mets are going to need a first baseman with Pete Alonso going, right? Like as soon as the bidding war happens, you know, we didn't think Juan Soto was going to whisper at 700 million. Now I feel like it's a 50-50 chance he gets
Yeah.
700 million, right? Like it felt like a foregone conclusion he was going to get 500, but I feel like even back then when he turned down that Nationals offer, 500 felt pretty crazy optimistic,
Yeah.
almost delusional, right? Like this is
Yes.
before Shohei signs for 700 million. And now you go, okay, well, high tide rises all boats, and this is where we're at. So yeah, that is like as crazy as it is to think Vlad's going to get 500 million. We might not be thinking that's crazy on December 3rd, 2025.
We
We might be
might be
like,
screaming for the Jays to do it July 1st. Like again, if
right?
Vladdy is
Yeah, if
having
he
a
has a
great
great
season
year,
and
yeah,
you know,
absolutely. I'm with you there.
so
I would just my only pushback on this, and I'll go to the grave. I'll I'll plant my flag on this, and you can fight me on it, but I'll defend my points with confidence, a lot more confidence than my CBT deferral discussion. There was never a point in Vlad's career where it was possible to get a deal done
it
without
feels that way.
without wildly overpaying.
The
Right? Like we
thing
can
with
look at the Brewers sign Jackson Churio, right? Before he ever played a game in the major leagues. They signed him for 82 million over 8 years with club options for 28 and 29. Look,
Vlad came from a family that
the
knows too
game,
much.
thank you. Right.
He
Also came
knows
from
too
a family where
much
like he was
about the
financially
game.
set up, didn't need
Exactly.
it, right? He could have
Yeah.
blown his ACL and needed Tommy John on the same play as a rookie. He still would have been wealthy for the rest of his life because of the family he comes from, right?
I do think there were windows where he could have got a deal done. I think after Tatis signed, there was a window where the Blue Jays could have taken a chance. But again, you're talking really early on in Vlad's career because the truth is, after 2021, it made no sense for him to sign a contract. Now, maybe it made some sense after 2022, and that might have been a secondary window where the Blue Jays could have overpaid for what they had seen there and it would look better now. It's
You're
just,
talking about like after his down season in 2022?
yes. And even then,
But then I
that's
don't
the
think he's listening to it. Like I don't think he's
and
in a
this is
position
where
where
this is where
the bet on
maybe there
himself
was a
of it all.
window in 2022 and then there definitely wasn't after 2023 where he had the worst season he'd had since his rookie season, right? Because at that point, if he believes in himself, which he has shown he does, then why would you sign at your absolute lowest value when you still have 2 years before you're a free agent to get that value back up? And then after he has a pretty much repeat of 2021, in fact, probably even a better season in every scenario outside of home runs, again, the question is, why would you sign? So I do agree with you almost 100%, Adam. I will say there is a 5%
Yeah.
of me that feels like there were a few moments, but hindsight's 2020 in these sort of
Yeah.
things.
Yeah,
And
if you feel confident, I'm not saying you, I mean you in the royal sense, you as a fan, you collectively feel good about giving Vladdy a long-term deal after last season when he was at his absolute lowest, and you said, "Oh, I would have given him 300 million over 10 years after that." After 300 straight games of trending down, you want to give him a payday of that size? We all would have lost our minds if Ross Atkins had done that,
mhm,
right? Like, but that's
of
what it would have
course.
taken to get a deal done, even at his lowest. Because, like you said, he still had a runway to bet on himself of two
Mhm.
full years. So it's just, yeah.
Yeah. All right,
Anyways,
we're
probably get
getting
500
long in the
million.
tooth here. I do have one last Patreon comment in the same sort of ilk. It's from Joey Schatz. Love that
Okay.
term. Love that handle, by the way. Joey Schatz
Mhm.
wrote in. He said, "Man, if both Vlad and Bo walk, all interest in Jays is gone for me at least. I'll tune back in 10 years or so once the window opens again. Trading them will unlikely bring a superstar back, in my opinion." Yeah, when you're dealing with prospects, that's probably a safe bet. Doesn't always be the case, but he goes, Atkins would just salivate over fourth outfielders and more utility second baseman for a return. Funny that even though I'm one of the biggest haters of Atkins and Shapiro, it's now being directed towards Rogers for hiring and allowing this front office to mismanage two generational talents. Yes, I'm including Bo. After 10 years, they only have Barrio signed long term and nothing to get excited about in the pipeline. Gross mismanagement. Anyways, love the show as always. Great conversation. So glad you enjoy, Joey. And that, it does make me sad, man, that we're in this place for the fan base that, like, these beloved core group members that we had so much hope for. We got zero moments with them. We got zero wins to celebrate in the playoffs. And now we could watch them walk for almost nothing. And I understand the sentiment of I will go back into the woods of just keeping an eye on the Jays peripherally as a fan. Not me, the royal
Mhm.
you. I'm
Yeah, yeah,
too
yeah.
much of a
Yeah,
masochist for that shit. I'll suffer through it, but
yeah.
I totally get it.
Yep.
Okay, going to YouTube here. Heart GW says to the Red Sox fans who are going to track the Soto plane, when is it landing? Hint, check with JP Morosi.
Nice.
So,
I like it.
yeah, we talked a little bit about the complete and total insanity going off in Red Sox Nation with them convinced that Juan Soto is already a member of the Boston Red Sox. I mean,
Mhm.
these wannabe reporters have basically been saying that this average Mick dude is just driving everyone crazy on Twitter because he broke the news about the Boston Bruins coach getting fired 24 hours
Right.
before it happened, and now he's in the know, and so
Yeah,
he's
yeah, yeah.
been, and you start seeing the stuff about Juan Soto's sister in law was in Boston looking for a condo, right? Like it's all
Right.
fucking there's a
Oh yeah, it's Yusei
reservation at a Japanese
Kikuchi.
restaurant.
Exactly.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. I mean, the idea of like predicting a coach got fired too is like one of the most grasping at straws,
Yes.
breaking the news things ever too. Like if I could just, I don't know,
Yeah.
if the writing's on the wall that a guy, you know, things aren't going well, it's not a stretch to be like, oh, probably gonna fire the coach today. And you could just, 300 people say that, one picks a day and they say it, and one guy is the oracle when it
Yeah.
eventually happens, right? It's
Yeah.
like, I don't know.
Sticking with YouTube, Mantis Toboggan, Doctor Mantis Toboggan says, loved Jay's
MD.
Talk 89 comment about Adam. He's the ultimate wild card on every discussion. Wild card, bitches. Yeehaw. Charlie D.
Yeehaw! Yeah, cut the brakes. I cut the brakes on the van. It's just, it's a shame right now. I'm podcasting out of my dad's apartment in the South End. If I was at home in my office, I have my favorite Christmas present I've ever gotten from my wife. It is a uh, framed certificate declaring that I do not have said donkey brains, which
Yes.
if you've seen It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, you get the
Yes.
reference. If you don't, you don't. But I'm sure Mantis Toboggan gets that reference. So wild card or not, I do not have said donkey brains.
Congratulations. And it's nice to
Thanks.
have a certificate to prove it.
I
Absolutely.
have legal documentation
Legal
declaring I do not.
documentation. No
And I
donkey
ask,
brain.
where is your certificate, sir?
So the last comment is actually a thread from
Okay.
YouTube. So there were a couple replies here. So we'll get into all of them. Mike B goes, if it's a repeat of last offseason, I would accept a rebuild. Although only if ownership recognizes Ross isn't the guy to complete the teardown. However, I can't imagine ownership will accept a rebuild as they just spent millions on the renovations and need butts in seats. Mark Ryan replied, he goes, agreed with everything you said except for butts in seats. Most of their revenue is generated by broadcasting. TV and internet are by far the largest revenue streams. Depth from Above responded, and I love that name, by the way. Depth from Above says, rebuild started last offseason. They've let every free agent go then and since, and then promoted the entire AAA roster. It's getting a little strange that from this fan base, it's getting a little strange that this fan base hasn't noticed. So, funny comment. I will say, and I guess it depends on your definition of a rebuild. I think the reason the fan base has not accepted this as a rebuild is number one, Mark Shapiro keeps saying it's not. Right. So you have the guy at the top being like, we are still in our competitive window. Secondly, when you watch a rebuild, normally you watch not just expiring contracts leave, which is all we watched at the deadline was the Blue Jays trading off the guys who only had a couple months of control left, right? So the Danny
Mhm,
Janssens and that sort
mhm.
of the world were traded.
Yep.
Um, Also in a rebuild, you don't watch a team continue to hold a super high payroll like this
Yeah.
team has done, right? Like they're going to be right around $240 million, which is
Yep.
going to rank them seventh or eighth in payroll again this year out of 30 teams. So it's not a rebuild because they aren't developing talent. They aren't bringing in high end draft picks. Like, there's a lot of reasons why this is just a bad team being bad and not a
Yeah.
rebuild where there's like a bright light at the end of the tunnel. And you're like, if we could just get through the darkness. Right now, we're just kind of in a dark room and we're like, Juan, Juan, save
Right.
us.
Yeah.
Uh, So I
Yeah.
agree with all three of those comments, and I think that there's truth in all of them.
I wanted to pull some numbers out here for context on the butts and seats. Because I think the pushback comment was that uh, TV revenue and stuff was a bigger factor than butts and seats. So
mhm.
even if butts aren't in seats, it's not the biggest disaster for the Blue Jays. So Blue Jays gate receipts, that would be ticket money from ticket sales for home games. In 2023, Blue Jays gate receipts were around 90 million.
Mhm.
The revenue that season was 328 million. So a little less than a third came from ticket sales. And that is also with the Blue Jays having notoriously one of the lowest TV deals in baseball. And again, that is for revenue sharing manipulation, right?
Mhm.
Whereas it's all still owned by Rogers. So if they were getting a market value TV deal, their revenue probably be pushing 400 million. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. There's also a note here about jersey patch sponsorship, which only kind of goes to this point, but I just thought it was interesting. Do you know who the Blue Jays jersey patch is? Is it
Of
TD?
course. Yes, that
That
god
bright
awful,
green?
ugly green on the blue.
So the AI overview answer from Google has the value of MLB patch sponsorship varies by team, but the average is around 7 to 8 million per year.
Okay.
And then it lists four examples here. The New York Yankees deal with Star Insurance is the richest in baseball at 25 million per year. The Cincinnati Reds deal with Kroger 5 million per year. The Blue Jays deal 20 million. That's what they're
Okay.
getting from TD, which is just crazy to me that that's a fifth of what their entire ticket sales are for the year. Like you're
Yeah.
only making 90 million in ticket sales and you're getting a more than
Shit, you could even
20%
say
of that just from a
25%,
patch.
right? Like
Yeah.
25% of wow, that is wild. Nice
So
research, buddy.
thanks. There you go.
Yeah.
Interesting stuff.
All right. On that, folks, we will leave you and just say a big thank you. Obviously, some exciting news when it comes to guests. We have Ben Nicholson Smith we're sitting down with tonight. If you are a Patreon member, you can catch that on Patreon. If you're not, you'll just need to wait until 8 a.m. Eastern Time tomorrow morning when we put out the Ben Nicholson Smith interview, where we will make sure that you are aware of anything happening or on the four on the front of what's going on. We'll talk about Roki Sasaki and those rumors. We'll talk about the rumor of Juan Soto being offered the most money by the Blue Jays. We'll do all of that and see what
If
BNS has to say.
if you're in Patreon watching this, drop a comment on this video or slide into our inbox if you have a
Mhm.
question or a topic you specifically want Ben Nicholson Smith to get to, and we'll ask
Yes,
him. So.
absolutely. All right, folks. Thanks so much. Take care. Cheers.